Hey all, my name is Chang. I'm the founder and CEO of Spruce ID. Our mission is to let users control their data across the web. Instead of signing into a platform, the platform should sign into a data vault that you control. So that's the architecture that we think the internet should run on, and that's what we've been working towards since day one. So when we started the company, one of the first things we realized was the power of cryptography to enable this model, right? Because if you don't have a private key to sign stuff, then you're kind of always relying on stewards, right? You're signing into some other service and you're trusting that they're not going to act against you. Think about what happens if your Gmail account gets taken away, right? Or your corporate account. A lot of access is lost, right? So we basically, that led us to our work with Sign In with Ethereum to allow you to log into a website with your blockchain account and then no one be able to take away the access, right? So this would move to a model with data vaults where you could selectively disclose information. So you start totally anonymous, disclose little bits and pieces until you reveal exactly what you want and nothing more, right? So this is the same architecture that we took to implement a ton of open source code that basically ended up being very useful in the public sector. We work with the California DMV to build the mobile driver's license program there. And to date, we have over 500,000 Californians. And if you look at the TSA's release, in terms of wallets that are allowed to board airplanes, right, for air travel and safety, we're the only US headquartered company other than Apple and Google that makes wallets and infrastructure suitable for that purpose. And a lot of it is interesting when you look at the blockchain as an ecosystem of different components, expertise, and professionals working together. When we talk to a lot of state agencies and institutions, right, and they need to start issuing digital credentials, they have to start using cryptography that is not to secure web connections, which is what the vast amount of cryptography and experts are focused on today. It's actually hard to find that kind of talent to build products, expertise, et cetera. And people in the public sector have like 20 jobs each, right? So they're already overreached and they really need the industry to support them, right? So one of the best sources of people who are good at public key infrastructure that are not for the web PKI use case are actually in the cryptocurrency industry, right? So it makes a lot of sense for the digital public infrastructure perspective when you look at it as an ecosystem and different pieces used towards it. In fact, a lot of the zero knowledge proof innovations that happened here are basically the de facto ways we can create privacy preserving identity when you're trying to use it, right? If you're trying to prove to a website, and there's several states with laws to be able to prove you're over 18 to access a website. Whether you agree or not with that, those are the laws in some places, right? And so shouldn't we try to do it as privacy preserving as possible, right? We don't want to create this surveillance potential where eventually one day someone could track every website someone visited down to the individual, right? So a lot of these use cases are possible using the innovations from this industry, and I don't think it gets enough credit for that. And I think it's really important that we recognize the potential of the technology to further develop the use cases. Because if you believe that all the things that are paper and plastic today are going to have digital forms, right? There already are. There's probably 11 states live right now with mobile driver's license, a lot of other sorts of credentials, everything from your concert tickets to your restaurant worker credentials. So you got your training so you can work at a restaurant. All these things are getting digitized, right? And we want that to happen in such a way that it goes into your digital wallet and you're able to control the disclosure of that information and even revoke consent, right? So there are all these tools and expertise that we have in the digital wallet ecosystem for blockchains that have direct application for digital public infrastructure, right? So it's really important to me that we don't throw a lot of that stuff out. For example, if we look at legislation that is not very tapered and tends to ban self-custodial wallets, for example, that definition might fit exactly your identity wallet, right? You might not even do anything financial for that, but then you need a money transmitter license or something else, right? So it's really important to me that the policy side gets right so that we can have a really good shot at user-controlled identity. So basically, we work with several states in the US. We work with the Department of Homeland Security to digitize things like the work authorizations and green cards and things to make the experience a lot better towards naturalization and other processes. So these are really critical technologies, and we have a lot of the important pieces here, right? And I think that if you start looking at it as digital public infrastructure, there are tons of use cases. For example, if you have a public internet and there's content and we don't know if it's fake or not, it makes a lot of sense to me that there's a public blockchain and you can have attestations for the content to know if it's real or fake or who said that, right? And I really want to move away from models where we have a ministry of information that tells you what's good or not, right? But instead, you're able to make your own determination based on the content and the metadata associated with the content, right? So to have this metadata layer that's censorship resistant, highly available, a bunch of things, right? Like these were a lot of the use cases that everyone was talking about in 2017 before we got like moved a little bit by the wayside. And one of the realizations I think at the time through the 2017 era was that a few areas were really necessary for these true systems to exist that could disintermediate and result in more decentralized systems, inculcate free markets, not free from regulation, but free from rent, right? And basically the idea that we're able to achieve this relies on infrastructure that was more scalable, cheaper, faster, and an identity layer. So that as you were sending a transaction, you knew more about your counterparty so that could happen, right? So these are a lot of the things that we're trying to work on in the digital identity space to make it possible. And we really want to build things in such a way that, even if we're working with the public sector, right? They have information about you. Their job is to keep the records, but why not just give it to you in a more useful way, right? With the digital signature on it. But to bring that public key infrastructure to allow an entity to do that takes a lot of expertise. And we actually have some of the best expertise to do that right here, right? Like think about the key management teams at Coinbase, Kraken, a whole bunch of other regulated entities that basically have to do a really good job at this. These are best practices that should stay here because we need to build that part up for other parts of the economy. It's just happenstance that that's how technology in the 21st century should work, that it's going to be based on cryptography, even for non-financial use cases, right? So throwing out the baby with the bathwater, I think, is something that's really terrifying for me because I don't want to see the smartest people in the industry go to other places. Then we can't access them for important use cases. If all the companies that are trying to figure out, global digital identity rely on innovations from this sector, and then like we're questioning the sector, that's a huge risk, right? So that's one of the reasons I care a lot. I'm grateful to be in this room. Thanks.